My neck had little lumps along the side of my jaw that used to throb, and now those lumps are loose. It's hard for me to show you guys, but I can feel them loose. So my jaw isn't throbbing as much. So I don't know if you guys can see. So instead of this jaw being so swollen, I think that's what helped my jaw become less swollen. There's a mark right here, which is where I told you they always target right here to get the swelling. And when they were targeting here, I could feel like the skin here got thicker. It's thinning a bit. So you can tell that it's thinning. So you can tell where they targeted were places where if you have too much swelling, it would hurt and it would cause the throbbing. So that's how this worked. So they targeted here, they targeted the jawline, they targeted the muscles. I showed you in a video my arm. One arm had a mark here, and then the other arm had a mark in the same place. So the twitching isn't coming back as much as it did before, but it's there a little bit. I wasn't feeling well, and I have marks on my legs again. Part of what the problem is that the marks match, so they target specific areas. They are still trying to guess what I'm going to say before I say it. That's another one of their scare tactics. So they said you have to find a different way of saying something. How dare they? That's I'm going to title this video. How dare they? How do these people survive in this world? I'm going to leave as a thumbnail a comment that someone left about how they hide themselves. That is how they survive. So I'm answering my own question when I say, how do they survive? They survive by hiding themselves. And by the time you realize who they are, you are already in a situation with them. That's the issue. The issue is, somebody said, and it was a famous person that said, um, you see people after a while. That's how these people survive. They don't show you who they are in the beginning. In the beginning, they're nice to you. This is how the talking started. They were so nice, and then they wanted to ask me questions and so forth. And then after, so they just said, wow. And then afterwards, they became this. And it was because I wouldn't go along with them. That was part of this whole situation. So, as they're trying to guess what I'm going to say, they're upset again, the emotional state, they're very upset. It seems like they are afraid someone's going to come and get them. I think that's normal. I mean, part of what they wanted me to do is be the one to come and get them. They prepared themselves that I was going to be the one to come and get them, and they knew exactly what would happen. They didn't expect so many other victims to come and try to get them. And that's a big deal. So when they're trying to, as I'm wiping like the saliva, the excess saliva, I told you this produces a lot of fluids. As I'm wiping the excess saliva, they're in the background talking about a different setup, meaning like they thought this was going to be their way of getting how I would answer questions. So I'm talking about one thing, and in the background they're saying, "What about this?" What, as though that would apply. But that's the whole point. Something in them believes in all of this craziness. So they try to say that I believed in astrology. And I've said this publicly over the years. I believe that people took case studies or examples of different sign, but I don't believe the prediction part of it. This is what this is. This is about prediction. And it didn't go the way they planned on it going. And they've been doing this for years, meaning I don't believe you can predict things. But I do believe that if you study certain things, just like in psychology, you can kind of get an idea about something. So you can get an idea about something by studying it. That's how we are able to know certain things. Like there are certain things that happen now, and you say, well, I know that because in the past it happened this way, and we've studied enough of those examples to figure out what it means. That I believe in. But being able to predict things, no, I don't believe in that. So they keep trying to say, well, that's the same as astrology. No, it isn't. They are upset because they corrected me one too many times and they were wrong and I was right. But they said that, they keep talking about how summer, winter, fall, and spring, we used to go based on uh the us one date, and then they changed it to a different date. And they said, yes, I was right. Winter was supposed to start December 1st and it used to, but now they say it starts a different date later on. So that's how was supposed to work. This was supposed to be about them correcting me. Then, if they got it wrong, going back to it, then I would have to think back, meaning I would always have to be in a position where I'm constantly reliving the past, not moving forward, but living in the past. This was never supposed to work with future. So I'm asking them this. Here we are. If you can predict the future, why are we living in the past? Why can't you start doing something towards the future? Going back to how I always start a video, like with so, or in the last video, in a previous video, that's the past. You're supposed to be predicting the future. Talk about something I'm going to do in the future. This is what I'm saying. There's something in them that, and I said this before, they don't make any sense to me. And if they don't make any sense to me, I know a lot of people who think like I do, and they don't make sense to those people. They make sense to the people that they are around. And that's part of why they just said that's why they needed me. That's the point. If you're going to talk about the future, I'm telling you what I think this was about. It was about people who are able to think being studied and observed and surveilled so that they can come up with something new, and then these people can steal it. There are people out there, not me, I'm 50. I mean, the stuff I would come up new isn't something that people were like, oh, that's amazing. No, it's like, okay. But there are young people out there, or people who can think of what the next thing is going to be. And they said I helped popularize the word vixen because at the time I was young. I wasn't 50 years old. And I came up with the word for something. And my elementary schoolmate was like, what's that word? I don't, what that, and I talked about it. And then that became popular. But that's my point. That was years ago. But if they could find people like that today and come up with what people are going to be saying in the future, they would be able to steal that. And that's how this would work. So they're worried about the past when it comes to me, but I'm sure when they're observing people who come up with things for the future, that's what they'll steal. And that's the big deal about this. So when I'm inside, I'm looking, I put this in a place where I could see it. Here's the cap. And I told you in a previous video, I saw a video where someone took like the plastic, like this type of plastic, and made something from it. And so they're trying to guess what I'm going to do with this whole thing. So the reason I like this, you can tell I still have something inside of it, is because it's clear and it could look like you could see through it, and it's not like the type of plastic that isn't clear. That's a very clear bottle, so you can make a lot of things out of it, and I showed you that in a previous video. So that's what they really want. They want the next thing, but they keep focusing on the past. And I'm trying to say to them, do these videos, you're not really proving anything. So they wanted to make this seem like it's me against them. And yes, it is. It is me against them. But they're not proving anything. If in the past I was successful and I was recruited based on that success, you can't then say I wasn't successful. If I'm not successful after you came into my life, that's what I'm proving. Okay, so we're actually proving the same thing. I'm proving what you've been proving, that I was successful in the past. You folks came into my life, meaning them, and now I'm not successful. So we're proving the same point. So I don't see how it is against each other. It's me proving the point that they made me this way. So when they're in the video and they're like, we don't like when you start to talk that way, it's because they know I'm talking that way to them. And instead of being strong enough inside themselves to look into themselves, which is very hard. It's hard to look into, for them, it's impossible. But for most humans, it's hard to look within ourselves and say, okay, what works, what doesn't work. For them, it's impossible because they can't stop blaming everyone else for their problems. The other thing I wanted to tell you folks about, what was it? I I can't remember. Oh, they said that they're going to keep doing this because it causes this inflammation and it causes my voice to go. Well, you know what? In some ways, it's going to happen. It's going to this is going to happen. Um when you see me when I was doing better without the inflammation and I was able to talk to you guys, I got to find the magnifying glass because I can't see how many minutes. It's too small now. I've been talking to you guys for 10 minutes and my voice is starting to go. I've had videos where I've spoken to you guys for more than that amount of time and my voice was still here. So, as my voice is going, as you guys can tell, whatever they're doing today is causing this. There was one other thing I wanted to tell you folks about. I gotta pause this and I'll come back. I don't remember what the other thing is that I wanted to tell you guys about, but I did. Oh, that was another thing. So they're like, well, you didn't just take turmeric to help. You had stuff over your head so that they couldn't hit me directly. I had turmeric. I had muscle relaxer. I rested. I had ginger tea. Um, I don't shower as much. You know, those things help. The irritation on my leg came back after I showered, but it's not as bad now because I'm not showering it or getting it wet. Um, I forgot what else what I wanted to tell you guys, but they said, oh, they thought this was going to be so embarrassing. Oh, that's another thing. They were upset that I showed you guys the book about the fairies, and they said, well, that they spent all night going over how I probably learned about those type of things from movies or from meditation videos, but then it turns out I learned it as a little girl. As a little girl, when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, fantasy movies were big, as you guys probably know. I'm not even going to go through the list of all these type of fantasy movies that came out when I was growing up. If you're around the same age, you know the movies like from the 70s, 80s, all sorts of fantasy movies. So they talked about how maybe also growing up with Sesame Street and shows like that helped. Yeah, I think it did. I think we were able, my generation, we grew up seeing different people and different things and being able to express our emotions. And I think it helped us. One of the comments, oh, that's something I wanted to tell you guys. One of the things I wanted to share in a comment section is there was a study that a lot of young black males are committing suicide. And I wanted to say to anybody who feels that way, please don't do it. I don't know what happened and why people are feeling that way now, but I think there's probably something because my generation, we didn't have that a lot. And I think part of it was we had a different our our way of expressing ourselves was different. We we could we were it wasn't that we could just express ourselves. We had a lot of shows, and I think I talked about this in a previous video, that had people talking about bad things that happened in their lives, and it helped. I think that's what could have changed in society. We went through a society recently where everyone's lives seem so great, and they're not. The lives aren't that great. And now when we get to see people's real lives, it's like, oh, okay. So growing up, I didn't see people's lives as so great. It wasn't the norm. But I think what happened, you know, over time is that people seem like they were doing great and they really weren't. So I'm saying that that is something that changed. So I want to tell everybody, if you're going through this and you've seen me going through this, please don't hurt yourselves, don't hurt anybody else. Know that things do get better. And I really feel that something's going on in this world right now. Unfortunately, it's not always good, but there are good things. So I think my next video, I'm going to try to find a lot of good things going on in the world so that I can at least have a video where I'm talking about some of the positive things that I see people doing. And I'm going to hope that they don't come up with their version of this because they want to control everything. And I think they are the ones controlling things and things aren't going well. So I think a lot of it is that regular people, we're going to have to start taking back control over the world and doing positive things, and these let these types of people see that their controlling things isn't working. It isn't. Thank you for watching.